Okay, let's dive in. What is the absolute breaking point of love?
Hmm.
I mean, imagine the person closest to you, they just morph, become
Yeah,
someone you don't even recognize, someone who violates like everything you hold sacred.
right.
Would that love, just endure? Unwavering.
Or that whole idea, the unconditional part.
Right.
Is it just a fragile fantasy, something we cling to?
Yeah, until it shatters against, well, the sharp edges of reality.
It's a huge gamble we take, isn't it? We're sort of taught this is the ultimate ideal, the bedrock.
Bedrock, exactly. But what if that bedrock is actually, quicksand?
What does it really demand from us?
Mhm.
This so-called unconditional love.
Okay, picture this. A world completely stripped of that ideal.
No automatic forgiveness.
Right. No expected loyalty.
Yeah.
Just the cold, hard math of connection.
Would that be like a more brutal world?
Or maybe just brutally honest, forcing us to see the unspoken deals we make.
It definitely highlights the conditions we often ignore, doesn't it?
We say it's unconditional.
But there's always an invisible line, isn't there? Respect, safety, some kind of basic give and take.
Aren't those the silent gatekeepers, the things we don't talk about, but, well, they matter?
Yeah.
I remember. I once really believed my love had no bounds, staked my whole identity on it almost.
Mm-hmm.
Then something happened, unthinkable, and that belief just poof, imploded.
The unconditional vanished, like a mirage.
Exactly. Was that my failure, my heart failing? Or was I just waking up from a really, really beautiful lie?
I think that hits on something really fundamental, doesn't it? That collision
Between what?
between our deep yearning for total acceptance
Yeah, we all want that.
and our hardwired need for self-preservation. We want to be loved no matter what, but we're constantly checking, adjusting boundaries based on what we get back.
So is that hypocrisy? Or just being human, messy and complicated?
Probably the latter, just navigating it all.
We often hold up parental love as the gold standard, unconditional.
Right, that's the classic example.
But even there, aren't there limits? Maybe unspoken ones.
What do you mean?
Like, if a child becomes someone who causes profound harm, who completely rejects everything the parent stands for,
Does that core love stay pure, untouched?
or does it twist into something else, something painful, like just obligation and grief?
The story we tell ourselves about parental love is powerful, deeply ingrained.
But the reality, when things get extreme.
The emotional reality can be way more complex. Maybe the commitment stays, the duty.
But the feeling, the positive emotion of love.
That can get seriously damaged,
Yeah.
compromised, maybe even disappear.
Okay, what if? What if this whole idea, this unconditional love thing, is actually a kind of Trojan horse?
How so?
A tool for manipulation, demanding loyalty no matter what, You have to love me no matter what I do.
Right. Isn't that just emotional blackmail wearing a disguise?
Yeah, like devotion, but it's coercive.
It definitely opens the door for power imbalances.
Mhm.
That demand for unconditional love can become a shield.
A shield for bad behavior.
Exactly. A way to dodge accountability because the connection is supposed to be unbreakable.
I knew someone. They were trapped in this awful cycle of abuse.
Oh, wow.
And their only comfort, their hope, was that their unconditional love would somehow change the abuser.
That's tragic. The devotion becomes the cage.
It was. The unconditional became this lethal delusion, keeping them stuck.
And that really highlights a crucial point. Love isn't the same as enabling.
Right. Accepting harmful behavior unconditionally.
It just keeps the cycle going.
Yeah.
It causes profound damage. Real love, even if it is conditional, often needs the courage to say stop, to set boundaries.
Firm boundaries. Okay, let's flip the mirror. Let's look at ourselves.
Yeah.
Can I honestly say we love ourselves unconditionally? Every single flaw, mistake, dark corner.
Or is our self-acceptance, dependent on hitting goals, on what others think?
If we struggle to give ourselves that kind of unconditional grace,
Good point.
why do we demand it so fiercely from other people?
Our relationship with ourselves, it really sets the template, doesn't it?
How we see ourselves influences what we expect from others.
Yeah, the conditions we place on our own self-worth. They suggest that boundaries and expectations are just fundamental to how we connect, inside and out.
So maybe chasing unconditional love is just futile, like trying to freeze something that's meant to be fluid.
People change, life happens, relationships evolve.
Wounds leave scars. Maybe love isn't supposed to be this static monument. Maybe it's dynamic. It adapts.
And sometimes it concludes, it ends.
And maybe that ending isn't a failure. Maybe it's just a necessary recalibration. life change, so the love changed or ended.
Impermanence touches everything. Relationships, feelings, they aren't exempt.
So expecting love to stay untouched by major shifts, that's just denying reality, isn't it? Denying change itself.
Very much.
What about, those big religious or spiritual promises? Unconditional divine love.
The ultimate safety net.
Is that a profound truth? Ultimate forgiveness? Or is it maybe a psychological coping mechanism?
The comforting story.
Yeah, to shield us from feeling, I don't know, cosmically alone or indifferent.
Well, the human need for acceptance, for belonging, it's incredibly deep.
So whether it's literally true or just a powerful archetype that meets that need.
That's a question people have wrestled with for centuries, millennia even.
Okay, let's try a thought experiment for everyone listening. Pause. Breathe.
Picture someone you love deeply, with everything you have.
Got them. Okay. Now imagine they do something unforgivable, cross a core value, a deep line.
Would your love stay the same, untouched? Be honest.
If the honest answer is no, does that make the love you felt less real, less valuable?
Or does it just define its boundaries, show its actual shape?
It forces you to confront how your own heart is built, doesn't it?
Yeah. Acknowledging limits doesn't make the love fake. It just makes it, well, real.
Yeah.
Human.
It's funny. We admire people with strong boundaries, right? People who stand firm.
Sure, we see that as strength, integrity.
But the ideal of unconditional love seems to demand tearing down all the walls. An open-door policy no matter what happens.
How do you square that? It feels like a fundamental conflict.
An irreconcilable paradox.
You nailed it. That's a central tension. Boundaries are crucial for mental health, for healthy relationships.
But unconditional love, at least in theory.
Seems to say boundaries aren't necessary.
Yeah.
Or even desirable, which creates this potentially impossible dynamic.
Think about it. If you loved someone truly, unconditionally, would you just stand by while they destroyed themselves?
Watching them spiral.
Or would a more conditional love compel you to step in, to set a limit? Like, I love you, but I cannot watch you do this. I won't enable this.
Isn't that condition sometimes the most loving thing you can possibly do?
That hits on the difference between support and enabling again.
Exactly. Sometimes the most loving thing is to refuse to participate in the destruction, even if it hurts in the moment.
It's like tough love.
Which is inherently conditional, driven by a deeper care, a hope for their well-being.
Our culture, movies, rom-coms, they're soaked in these grand declarations of forever, unwavering love.
The big finale.
Yeah.
I'll love you no matter what.
Are those just harmless fun? Or are they subtly messing with our heads, setting us up with unrealistic expectations?
Expectations that just crumble when real-life, messy, long-term connection happens.
Yeah, pop culture often sells these perfect, ultimately unsustainable ideas of love.
The happily ever after ending hides all the work.
Yeah.
The negotiation, the compromise, the resilience needed to actually make it work.
Okay, lightning round. Scenarios.
Go for it.
Your partner gets terribly ill, changes everything about your life together.
Okay.
Your kid embraces an ideology that horrifies you, goes against your core morals. Your best friend commits an atrocious crime, unspeakable.
Wow, heavy.
Does unconditional mean you have to stay, regardless of the cost to you? Your sanity, your soul.
Where does love stop and martyrdom begin?
Exactly.
These extreme cases really force us to face that clash. The ideal versus our basic need for safety, integrity, even survival.
Look, I believe in deep love, resilient love, love capable of amazing forgiveness. Me too. But unconditional, that word, it implies being detached from reality, from consequences, from behavior itself.
That doesn't sound like strength. It sounds like
denial, like some kind of pathological inability to have boundaries.
Yeah, maybe resilient love is a better term. It acknowledges things can get strained, that repair might be needed.
But it doesn't demand pretending everything is fine no matter what.
Resilience implies you can adapt and endure, but, within reasonable limits.
I heard a therapist say something once that felt almost blasphemous.
Oh, what was it?
They said the healthiest love is deeply conditional.
Wow.
Conditional on respect, reciprocity, safety, shared values, effort. It felt jarring at first.
I bet.
But the more I've thought about it, the more deeply sane it sounds.
It actually aligns with understanding love as this dynamic exchange, right?
Yeah.
Built on mutual regard, investment.
So conditions like respect and safety, they aren't limiting love.
No, they're the foundation. The ground healthy love needs to even grow.
Okay, here's a cynical thought I can't shake.
Let's hear it.
maybe the people who shout the loudest about needing unconditional love are the ones least capable of offering even conditional love back. They want a blank check for their own behavior.
Knowing they're likely to overdraw the account of kindness.
Exactly.
There can definitely be a self-serving angle there. Demanding unconditional love becomes a way to avoid responsibility. Knowing forgiveness is supposedly guaranteed no matter what.
And social media. Oh boy. It's flooded with these performative declarations, right?
Yeah.
Hashtag love without limits.
The highlight reel.
Yeah, but it feels so curated. It hides all the negotiations, the compromises, the actual conditions that make relationships work day to day.
It's like a beautifully filtered lie.
It really is. Social media shows the peaks, ignores the valleys, ignores the conditions.
Okay, let's get brutally honest with ourselves for a second.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever kind of wielded the idea of your unconditional love?
Yeah.
Like a subtle weapon?
What do you mean, like making someone feel guilty?
Yeah, indebted. Guilty for not meeting this impossible standard. Like,
Right.
I love you no matter what, so why can't you just do what I want?
Oh, that's an insidious little trap, isn't it?
It really is. It sets this unattainable bar and can totally be used to manipulate.
Okay, what about forgiveness? Can real forgiveness be unconditional?
Or does it need something back? Accountability, remorse, seeing actual change.
If you forgive unconditionally, no matter what, no change needed, are you really forgiving? Or just making the transgression meaningless, erasing its significance?
Forgiveness is complicated. The internal decision might be one thing.
But actual reconciliation, moving forward together?
That usually requires acknowledgement, commitment to change, unconditional forgiveness. Without that, it might actually stop real healing for everyone.
All right, let's flip this whole thing completely.
Okay.
What if the most loving thing you can do is show someone that love is conditional?
How so?
Conditional on them treating you and maybe themselves with basic respect, basic care.
Isn't that actually teaching them the real value of connection? That it's something earned, nurtured, not just automatic.
Setting healthy boundaries, having expectations, that can be a powerful act of love.
It says, this connection matters. It's worth protecting. It encourages mutual respect, responsibility.
We say we want someone to love us for who we are.
Yeah, that's a common phrase.
But which version of who we are, our best self, our worst? Today's version, the person we hope to be.
Good question.
If someone just unconditionally accepted our absolute worst, would that even motivate us to grow, to change? Where's the friction for improvement?
It raises questions about love's role in our own evolution, doesn't it? Acceptance is key, obviously.
But unconditional acceptance of negative stuff
Might accidentally get in the way of positive change, self-improvement.
Think about tough love. We mentioned it earlier.
Inherently conditional.
Right. I love you enough to set this limit, to impose this consequence, even though it hurts us both right now.
Isn't that often more genuinely caring than just passive, unconditional acceptance, which can feel like indifference sometimes?
Tough love shows commitment to their long-term well-being, even with short-term pain.
It sets conditions and consequences, hoping to nudge them towards growth.
Okay, so here it is. The potential mic drop moment.
Lay it on us.
Maybe the problem isn't that love has conditions. Maybe the real issue is our massive dishonesty about them.
We keep pushing this myth of unconditional love.
Setting ourselves and others up for disappointment, for feeling betrayed, instead of just being open. Look, my love for you is huge, it's profound, but...
It needs mutual respect. It needs safety. It needs you not to become someone who fundamentally violates my core.
Exactly.
Honesty, transparency about expectations.
Yeah.
That's got to be key in any healthy relationship.
Pretending love is unconditional when it clearly isn't, that just breeds resentment, kills trust, leads to the whole thing falling apart.
But what if we just dismantled the myth?
Yeah.
Could that actually be liberating?
Freeing us from guilt when our love hits a natural limit.
Freeing us from feeling obligated to stay in toxic situations.
Freeing us to go after a more realistic, sustainable, conditional love, built on effort and respect.
Embracing the reality of conditions could empower us, help us make healthier choices, prioritize our own well-being, seek connections based on what's real.
But you might still be clinging to that fairy tale, right? That someone, somewhere, will just embrace every single messy bit of you. No limits, forever.
It's a comforting thought, a fantasy.
But could that fantasy be the very thing holding you back? Tethering you to unrealistic hopes, stopping you from building the real-world, imperfect but workable love that's actually possible.
Holding on to those idealized ideas can definitely stop us from engaging with the messy reality of actual relationships, fosters passivity instead of active building.
So maybe unconditional love is just a beautiful prayer, whispered against the tough reality of human flaws,
And mature love, maybe it isn't about erasing conditions,
but about consciously choosing your conditions wisely.
and then having the courage, the integrity to actually uphold them.
That's a powerful shift. Defining and maintaining conditions isn't weakness. It's intentionality, self-respect.
And that big question still hangs there, doesn't it?
If the person you love most crosses your deepest line, would the love remain untouched?
If you let yourself admit, the answer might be no.
Does that make the love less valuable?
We're just human, finite, real.
Acknowledging the limits doesn't diminish the love. It grounds it, recognizes the complexity.
If this whole discussion has struck a chord, if it stirred something up, maybe share it.
Maybe it's time we started having these honest conversations, even if they're uncomfortable, with the people we love.
Ask them, what are the unspoken conditions of our love?
The silence you might get back, that could be the most revealing answer.
Starting those open talks about expectations, boundaries, it's crucial for deeper understanding, stronger bonds.
Could chasing this ideal, this unconditional thing, be a form of spiritual bypassing?
A way to avoid the hard work.
Yeah, the messy work of negotiating needs, setting boundaries, holding people accountable, the real dance of connection.
The pursuit of the ideal can definitely be a way to sidestep the practical challenges. Conflict, disappointment, compromise, all that real-life stuff.
So which is more loving, really? Promising an unconditional love you probably can't deliver. Setting up future heartbreak.
Or promising a deep, resilient, but yes, conditional love, and then committing to uphold those conditions with honesty, which promise actually means more.
Honesty and transparency about love's nature, including its conditions, that builds real trust. A realistic foundation.
We use unconditional like a magic word sometimes, don't we? Trying to purify love of its messiness.
The jealousy, boredom, resentment, betrayal.
But real love is messy. It's complex, human, evolving. Trying to force it into that unconditional box is like trying to stop the ocean. Futile.
Imagine teaching a kid that love requires absolutely nothing back. No kindness, no respect, no effort.
How would that prepare them for real relationships?
Wouldn't it just breed entitlement? Leave them shocked when the world inevitably has conditions. Are we setting them up?
Teaching kids about mutual respect, effort, kindness. That's vital for their development. Unconditional expectation might not equip them for the give and take.
Try this exercise. List your conditions, the specific things that would make your love for someone genuinely end.
Be precise. Deep disrespect. Betrayal of core values. Intentional harm.
Acknowledging these doesn't cheapen the love. It makes it tangible, definable, real.
Identifying those boundaries is just good self-awareness, healthy relationship management.
I love you unconditionally. It's often said with such sincerity.
But maybe it's less a statement of fact and more a statement of hope, of intent.
A promise whispered against future unknowns, potential deal breakers, a prayer disguised as a vow.
The intention is usually about lasting connection, but the gap between intention and reality, that can be huge, especially if conditions aren't acknowledged.
And when relationships end, how often do we hear, well, they never really loved me unconditionally?
Like an accusation.
Is that fair? Or is it maybe deflecting? Avoiding the unmet conditions may be perfectly fair conditions that actually cause the breakup.
Does the myth give us a convenient scapegoat? We demand the impossible, then blame them when it doesn't happen.
Attributing the end just to a lack of unconditional love simplifies things too much. Often it's about needs not being met, conditions being broken.
So what if the best relationships aren't built on that fantasy at all?
But on conditional trust, mutual respect, ongoing attraction, all constantly renegotiated through communication and effort.
Maybe conditional isn't the bad guy. Maybe the lack of clarity about the conditions is the real danger.
Transparency and open talk about the conditions, that's essential for trust, for navigating challenges.
You might believe strongly in unconditional family love.
But what if a family member is actively harmful, manipulative, abusive?
Does that idea of unconditional obligation mean you have to endure unconditional suffering?
Where does self-love, self-preservation fit in? Like Nietzsche warned, sometimes ties that bind also suffocate.
Family bonds are complex, strong, but not immune to needing boundaries, self-protection. Unconditional family love has to be balanced with individual well-being.
And you don't need huge betrayals to see love as conditional every day.
It's in the small things.
Yeah, shared laughter, connection, comfort. Just showing up, agreeing to keep trying. These are conditions too, right?
We just don't label them that way because they're positive.
But they're requirements. They keep the relationship going.
Positive aspects, shared experiences, support.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could see those as implicit conditions strengthening the bond.
So who benefits most from this myth of unconditional love?
Often it seems like the ones demanding it loudest.
But rarely offering even conditional love back. The takers, the emotionally immature seeking a safety net.
Are we enabling them by clinging to the ideal?
The expectation can definitely be exploited by those unwilling to take responsibility or reciprocate care.
I used to romanticize those no matter what couples.
Then I started seeing behind the curtain.
The resentment, the enabling, the sort of deadness.
Yeah. Sometimes that unconditional endurance is just shared imprisonment, built on a flawed idea.
Longevity isn't the same as health or happiness. Sticking to the ideal can mask huge problems, stop people finding better paths.
Carl Jung talked about the shadow self, didn't he? The parts we deny. Does chasing unconditional love make us blind to the shadows in others, setting us up for heartbreak when reality hits?
Jung's idea definitely pushes for acknowledging the whole picture, good and bad. Insisting on unconditional might mean denying the difficult parts.
Think about your life right now. Is there a relationship where that unconditional expectation feels heavy, unfair, suffocating?
You probably know which one.
What's the condition that needs to be spoken? Not to attack, but for your own well-being, even if saying it risks shattering an illusion.
Identifying and communicating those unmet needs, those boundaries, it's essential.
And be honest. Have you ever, maybe unconsciously, weaponized someone else's unconditional love for you?
Taken advantage. Push boundaries knowing they wouldn't break. Exploited their commitment.
The myth cuts both ways. It can be seductive to exploit.
The expectation can create that dynamic where one person feels entitled, knowing forgiveness is likely.
So maybe the goal isn't unconditional love. Maybe it's resilient love.
Love that can bend without breaking, repair after rupture, adapt to change.
Resilience admits damage happens. Unconditional often has to deny it, pretend it doesn't exist.
Focusing on building resilience, strong communication, support, navigating challenges together that feels more realistic, more sustainable.
Maybe, just maybe, you're not hunting for some mythical unconditional love.
Yep.
Or claiming to provide it.
Maybe you're just human.
Yeah. Capable of deep connection and, inevitable disappointment. Just trying to navigate conditional attachments with grace, honesty, self-awareness.
And maybe that's completely okay. More than okay.
Recognizing our flaws, the complexities, that leads to self-compassion. Realistic expectations.
Okay, final thought experiment. Choice time.
Option A. Someone says they love you unconditionally. Their affection is detached from your actions, who you become.
Option B. Someone declares a love that's undeniably conditional, based on respect, effort, commitment. A love that requires you to show up, participate.
Which one actually feels more valuable, more authentic, more real?
The value we feel often comes from being seen, understood, appreciated for who we are, and the effort we make. Conditional love, based on that mutual respect and effort, that can feel more validating.
But we can't just ditch the idea of unconditional love without facing what conditional love demands.
Promptability.
Yeah.
Constant choice, effort, communication. The real possibility of failure, of change.
Are you ready for that? Or does the easy fantasy of unconditional still feel safer, even if it's an illusion?
Embracing conditional love means actively engaging, communicating needs, boundaries, accepting joy and heartbreak are both possible.
If society shifted away from unconditional towards honest conditionality, would we become colder, more transactional?
Or maybe more intentional, more respectful, with a deeper understanding of connection.
A shift towards honesty about conditions could lead to more realistic expectations, healthier boundaries, and maybe, ultimately, more fulfilling relationships.
That persistent desire you might have for unconditional love, where does it come from?
Is it a noble yearning for total acceptance?
Or maybe a deeper fear that your conditional self, the real you with flaws and needs, is somehow unlovable unless those conditions vanish. Like Socrates said, knowing yourself includes knowing your fears about love.
Our expectations often mirror our self-worth, our beliefs about our own lovability. Wanting unconditional love might stem from fear of not being accepted as we are.
And remember, when a parent says, "I love you unconditionally,"
they often mean, my commitment to your basic well-being is unwavering, which is huge, powerful.
But it's not necessarily the same as loving any behavior, any future self, without limit. Conflating those two is risky. leads to misunderstandings.
Healthy parenting involves boundaries, expectations. Those are conditional.
So maybe the highest form of love isn't unconditional acceptance. Maybe it's conditional encouragement.
A love that says, because I love you, I hold you to a standard. I have expectations. There are conditions for our positive connection because I value you and me.
Conditional encouragement fosters growth, accountability, shows care and belief in potential.
I've learned the hard way sometimes that my own love has limits, conditions.
And acknowledging that.
Didn't make me feel less loving. It made me feel more honest, more grounded, free from trying to be perfect. Maybe that's true for you too.
Self-awareness about our own boundaries, our conditions, essential for authentic relationships.
We're all tangled in this, aren't we? Demanding unconditional, setting conditions, offering infinite love within real limits.
The hypocrisy isn't the core problem. The silence is.
Admitting conditions exist, bringing them into the light, that might be where real intimacy starts.
Open, honest communication about expectations, boundaries, vital.
So, back to the start. Abolish the idea of unconditional love.
Maybe not abolish, maybe redefine, radically.
Pushed from no limits to radically resilient.
Yeah. Capable of weathering storms, enduring challenges, but not obligated to stand in a hurricane indefinitely just because the word love was used.
Reframing towards resilience, growth, respect, that feels healthier, more realistic.
You aren't defined by your capacity for unconditional love. Don't feel shame for failing at the impossible.
Your real worth. It lies in the quality of your conditions, your integrity in upholding them, the grace and clarity you use to communicate them.
That's where authentic love lives and breathes. Honesty, integrity, communication.
If this deep dive felt like an attack, like cynicism, once again, ask yourself, what cherished belief felt threatened? Why the gut reaction?
Sometimes the ideas that provoke us most hold a hidden kernel of uncomfortable truth. Our emotional responses can point to beliefs worth examining.
And if this gave you permission to acknowledge your limits, to demand essential conditions, share this deep dive.
Maybe it's time we all started having more honest talks, even the difficult ones, about love's requirements, not just its fairy tale promises.
This has been the deep dive. We don't do comforting illusions. We ask the hard questions.
So we leave you with this. If unconditional love is a myth, what's left?
Maybe something harder. Messy, eh? But far more real.
A love built not on fantasy, but on conscious, conditional, courageous choices.
Made by imperfect humans, navigating a world that, like love itself, rarely comes without conditions.